So now we're going to do the back of the garment. So we're going to take our front sketch and move it over. And then we're going to select that sketch again, hold Alt Shift to copy it over. And the copy is going to be the back of the garment. So in order to do the back of the garment, you can use the reference garment. I do have a photo of the back of the garment, but for this video, I'm not going to use it. I'm just gonna make up what I think the back should look like. So the way that we do a back sketch in fashion design is that we first just copy the front garment over. So we have the basic silhouette down, and we're gonna get rid of any parts that we know we're not gonna need. So we definitely don't need a lapel on the back, and we can get rid of the lapel and the lapel shadow. We're not going to need a center front shadow because the back is not going to have any division in the back. We're not going to need our collar stand. We're not going to need certain parts of the belt. There is going to be the back belt, but we don't need all these individual parts of the belt. So I'm getting rid of those. I'm just leaving this part here because I'm going to make my new belt on top of that. We can get rid of these stitch lines because we're going to create a new flap shape on the back. And so now that I've gotten rid of a lot of the pieces that I don't need, I'm going to lock this layer. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to sketch the parts that I'm adding on top of this. So you'll notice that I kept the collar. That's just a placeholder right now because I'm gonna draw the back collar, and I want to draw it on top of this. So we are going to, as always, draw half of the pieces that we need, and then we're gonna reflect those over. So I'm starting by drawing the back collar, and I'm following the shape that's on the top of the front collar, but I'm drawing it as a back collar instead. And I accidentally still have this on a dash line. So I'm changing it to a 1-point stroke in fuchsia so that I can see what I'm doing on top of my front garment. And now I'm gonna just reflect this over. Click over both of those parts to join them. Do object join, do object path join, object path average, and do that on the top points and on the bottom points as well. Okay, so I have my back collar drawn, and now I can actually get rid of the front collar. So getting rid of that shape, getting rid of these lines, and I'm gonna fill this in so that I can start covering the parts that I don't need. And even though on the front this top part was this narrow, I think on the back it doesn't really make sense, so I'm just gonna widen that a bit. You know, on the front it's a little different because you're kind of showing where it curves in, but on the back, let's just widen that a bit. It's okay to do that. And here I'm going to get rid of the inside back, and I'm going to get rid of one side of the flap. And I'm going to lock this layer again, and on my back layer, let's put back details. I'm gonna start drawing again in the fuchsia color. I'm gonna follow the same raglan line as on the front, but it's coming up all the way to the back collar now. I'm gonna follow the same side as my previous flap. Make sure it's the same shape and the same length. And I'm going to make this a little more straight here, not curved like the front collar was. Now let's just make this in a little bit contrast color here. I don't want it the same color as the collar, so I'm gonna do a green. And I'm gonna make sure I make a closed shape here. This is gonna go under the collar. So right now it's okay if it overlaps. Now here on the bottom of the flap, I want to show that it's kind of curving around the body. So I'm gonna make this shape right here. This is going to have like a gray fill. And I'm gonna select that half of the flap and reflect it over. And let's just lock this back collar here. We're gonna do object, path, join, object path average. You can also use the join tool if you're in Creative Cloud, and we're gonna do the same thing with the bottom here, object, path, join, and object path average. And on my regular sketch layer that has the front pieces, I can just get rid of the back flap now. And the shadow, I'm gonna lock that again. And on the back details layer, I'm actually gonna arrange this so that my back collar is on the top. I'm gonna go ahead and use the eyedropper tool to select the front collar so it has the same, so that the back collar has the same stroke and fill as the front collar. I'm gonna go ahead and select my new back flap and also touch on the front back flap to make sure it has the same stroke and fill. And then here on these little wraparound pieces I made, I'm gonna just change the outline to black. And still on my back details layer, I'm going to again select the fuchsia color, and now we're gonna draw the belt on top of this previous belt from the front. So I'm gonna click here and click on the other side and just curve that just ever so slightly. I'm gonna make sure that I'm coming out from the garment just a little bit. And I'm gonna copy this line by holding Alt-Shift to copy it down. And then I'm gonna connect the top line and the bottom line. And this bottom line, I'm gonna, with my arrow keys, I'm just gonna select and bring them out just a little bit. And I'm not gonna have any fold lines or movement lines in it. So let's go to the layer that has the front garment and get rid of those. Get rid of the shadows, get rid of the movement lines, and actually get rid of the front belt itself. And now I'm going to select the back belt and use the eyedropper tool, touch the front belt, and it's gonna be the same stroke, fill, stroke weight, everything. Okay, we're almost there. So before we forget, let's add the stitch line onto the back flap. And we pretty much drew that as a straight line. I think I curved it just a little bit. I can always copy that, but I'm just gonna just do it by eye. And you can use the eyedropper tool to touch the stitch line on the front so that it's the exact same stroke weight and the same type of dash lines. And we're gonna quickly make our belt shadows. So we'll lock the belt, use a contrast color, follow the shape of the belt, copy that line down parallel, join those two lines at the sides, copy the same shape that we made and bring it up to the top to make the top shadow. And at the same time, we're gonna take these two pieces, select them both, and we're gonna touch on the front belt shadow to get the same exact effect. And then we'll select those two pieces again, those two shadows, and just make sure that they're behind the belt so that you don't see any shadow on top of the belt, it's only behind. And make sure that you've gotten rid of the front. Any front shadows that you don't need. Now here, this flap here is a little bit higher up than it was on the front, because on the front it's kind of curving down. So these shadows here need to be elongated. So you can just quickly do that by grabbing the anchor points on the tops of them and just dragging the whole shape up to elongate the shadow. And the bottom of the shadows should stay where they are. These are okay, the movement lines are okay, they're being covered by the flap. These lines on the bottom are okay, and the last part that we have to do is we're not gonna have this opening here. The back is supposed to be closed, so I can take this shape, copy it over, and modify it to be the back. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. But first, if you're finding this content useful, remember to like, share, and subscribe. So I'm going to take this shape, isolate it, and copy it. And I'm going to make another layer that is between my main sketch and the new back details that I just made. And I'm going to do Control C to bring that piece that I just copied to that new layer. And I am just changing the stroke color so you can see what shape it is that I copied. It's just this left side of the front body. I'm gonna get rid of the fill so I can see underneath. And what I wanna do is I wanna cut this shape so that I only get the part that I need, which is only really the side here. I just wanted it to be exactly like the front. So then I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna delete the parts that I don't need. So I don't need this. I can select over these bottom parts here and then bring this up. So I'm kind of keeping that fold shape that I had on the front. So this is the shape that we're gonna make our back. It needs to connect to the front at the side here, but it's gonna come up at the center front. And I'm just keeping this little fold here, but we're gonna see how it looks at the end. If we don't like how it looks, then we're probably gonna straighten that out. So let's just see how this turns out. So right now, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to double click on this shape to isolate it so we can see it by itself. And what we wanna do is make a complete shape out of this and reflect it. So just like I brought this part to the center back, I'm going to now bring this upper part to the center back as well. And it doesn't matter how the shape looks because it's going to be covered by the flap anyway, like it was before I put it into isolation mode. So now I'm selecting that, clicking on my reflection tool, reflecting it, select over the two middle points at the top, do object path join, object path average, and then at the bottom 2 points you'll do the same thing, object path join, object path average, click OK, and now you've got a whole shape here. And we can fill this in with white, double click to get out of isolation mode, and you'll see that fuchsia line is your new back body. But we don't want to have this on top here because we're missing all these movement lines that we had before. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this shape and we're gonna bring it into this other layer here, and we're gonna make sure that it's sitting directly on top of the front body pieces. That way it'll be in front of these front body pieces like it needs to be, but it'll be behind all those movement lines and shadows that we already drew. So let's take this shape, and it's no longer the main body left side, but it is the new back body. So we need to find where that shape is. We're gonna drag this down. It's probably all the way at the back. You see, the further that we drag this sub layer down, we start seeing those movement lines pop up. So now we're gonna move this all down until we have our layers where we need them to be. So you see now everything is in its right place, and I can make this fuchsia line into a black outline. And these two pieces here, these are the front body. And the reason that I kept them is because we want to show from the back that you can see the front hanging down longer. That's part of the design detail, and we don't want to get rid of that. So just like we needed to show in the front that there's an inside back and at the top here, and there's an inside back at the bottom here, we're gonna show in the back view that there's an inside part of the front that you can see from the back. So I'm gonna just do this, use the eyedropper tool, and I'm gonna make these parts gray so that we can tell that these two parts are not part of the back body, they're part of the front body. And just like over on the front, I made this fold back here, I'm gonna do the same thing to the front body pieces because that's how it's gonna look in real life. And I'm not gonna put any stitch here because this is going to be a clean finish hem. So first of all, I said I was going to maybe adjust this, and as you can see, I do need to adjust it a little bit. And I don't know if I really like this, the way that it came out. I might just do this. Yeah, I think that looks better. I think it looks better if I just do this instead. And I'm going to have to adjust these shadows and movement lines so that they're not extending to that inside front part. They need to be accurately only on the back now. And even though we had this type of shape on the front, I don't think it looks right to keep it on this view. It's just not relevant to this view. So we're gonna just smooth this out a little bit. And on another layer, I'm going to take my contrast color stroke and I'm gonna draw this little fold back here. And I'll just make it more of a straighter curve here on purpose, just to cover that. And this is approximately how long the fold back looks on the other side, on the front. So here I'm gonna join these two parts, make sure that they're lining up with the front. Here I'm gonna also connect these. And I think this looks shorter than what I have on the front. So I'm just gonna make this a little taller like that. If you want to, you can actually copy this piece and set it over here next to this piece, just to double check, and then you can erase it. So I'm gonna take this and I'm going to reflect it to the other side. And we can adjust this here so that there's nothing peeking out. There's probably also a facing in here, so let's just go ahead and draw that too. Use the eyedropper tool to make that the same, and I would put this part above this part. So I'm just going to group these together. And these parts right here, let me just make them a contrast outline color so you can see which parts I'm referring to. Those are the fold back and the facing, so that is going to go behind this back panel but in front of these two front panels. So let's just rearrange our sub layers so that we can get this to where it needs to be. There you go, it's where it needs to be. And we're just gonna make black outlines on all of those, and let's just make those facings bigger than that. Don't know why I made it so skinny. But that's okay as long as we fix it. And now we're gonna just take a look at everything again, and I still don't like what's going on with this hem. So let me get rid of this anchor point here. I just don't like it. I think we'll just keep that straight. And that looks better. And let's just make sure that we join all of these new back parts to the existing parts to object group. Give it a quick check. So now your front and back sketch are done. And now let's duplicate that because I always like to keep a copy of my sketches in black and white. Okay, so now I want to make my sketch into other colorways. So let's select on any part that has a white fill. And we're going to go up to select same fill color. And I'm going to select on this beige color. And now for these inside parts that are gray, I'm going to select. If you notice, I made them all the same exact gray color. So I'm going to click on one of those, click on select same fill color. I'm going to click on the same beige, but then I'm going to double click on it in the fill box, which brings up my color picker. And I'm just going to choose a little bit darker color. And I'm going to click OK. And that makes the inside parts a little bit darker color to differentiate between the front and the back. And now I'm going to try another colorway. So let's click on any part that's beige, select same fill color, and let's do this pink color. And then let's click on the inside parts, select same fill color, select that same pink color, but double click on the fill box to pull up the color picker and choose. You can choose a color that's either lighter or darker, but in the case of pink, I would pick a darker color to differentiate between front and back. And then we're gonna do another colorway, so select same fill. I'm gonna do blue. And then I'm gonna select the inside parts, select same fill, pick the blue, and double click on the fill box to make a darker color. And that's our blue colorway. And let's do one more colorway. We're making these jackets for spring. So let's select on any blue part, select fill color. And now I'm selecting the green color. And then I'm selecting the inside parts, select same fill color, select the green color, and with the color picker, we're gonna pick a little bit darker color so that we can make our inside garment a little bit different. So now we've got all these nice colorways, and the last thing we need to do is just make a board with all these colorways. And there you go, you have a whole belted jacket presentation. Hope you found this useful. See you on the next video. Thanks guys.